Minister, I invite you as the Minister for Mining and Energy and the Minister for Renewables to introduce the officials accompanying you and to make an opening statement regarding the Department of Mining and Energy.
Thank you for that, Chair. And before I get started, I'd just like to thank all the department and the officials for coming up and all the work they've done. I know that there's been an extreme amount of work done preparing this and getting things ready, so thank you for that. Appearing with me today is Alice Trier, the Chief Executive Officer, the Chief Financial Officer, Joanne Frankenfield, over to that way?
In the back.
In the back, sorry, she was sitting there. Senior Executive Director, Northern Territory Geological Survey, Ian Scrimshaw, Acting Senior Director of Mining and Development, Joni Wood, and Senior Executive Director of Energy Development, James Pratt, and also Ann Tan down the end there. And I'll introduce any other DME officials as required as we move through the whole process if they're required to come to the front. So we'll do that as our mining and resource sector is the economic backbone of the Northern Territory and is critical to the CLP's commitment to rebuilding the Territory economy. Since coming to government last year, the 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙀𝙑𝙬𝙎𝙎 government has been focused to make the Territory the leading jurisdiction to explore and private investment and job creation. Back to the sector, we do everything we can to make the Territory a competitive place. We need to ensure that this sector can compete with other jurisdictions across Australia. The Department of Mining and Energy is one of the fundamental agencies responsible for delivering to rebuild the Territory economy. The Department's remit focuses on the responsible development of the Northern Territory's energy and mineral resources for the benefit of all Territorians. This includes the development of our mineral extraction and downstream processing industry, the implementation of renewable energy programs, and the development of our energy resources across Central Australia and in the Beetaloo sub-basin. The Department delivers these critical functions through the expert scientific advice to the government and the general public and granting and the regulation of petroleum and mining tenure. The Department is divided into 5 output groups, each with their own role to suit their responsibility. These include Energy Development, Beetaloo Project Management Office, Sustainable Energy Development, Northern Territory Geological Survey, and Mining Development. The Northern Territory's future is our gas industry, and we're very lucky because we've got lots of it. In fact, the Territory arguably has the nation's most significant energy assets, and it lies just a few hundred kilometres south of where we're sitting today. The Beetaloo sub-basin is estimated to contain 5 trillion cubic feet of gas in one shale layer alone. Permit holders in the Beetaloo are projecting they could produce 4 billion cubic feet of gas per day from around 2030. While that is a mere 4 years away, we're expecting first gas sales to come from the Beetaloo later this year or early the next year. The Beetaloo has enough gas in one shale layer not only to meet the energy demands of the Territory, but also provide low emissions energy security for the East Coast and additional LNG exports from Darwin. Ensuring the Beetaloo sub-basin reaches its full potential is the #1 priority of the 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙀𝙬𝙎𝙎 government. As well as driving energy security for our country, it will create jobs and opportunities for Territorians for years to come. That is exactly why the NT government has set up the Beetaloo Project Management Office in the Department of Mining and Energy last year. This office's exclusive job is to ensure a whole-of-government approach to delivery of onshore gas and in the development of that industry and to maximise the economic and community benefits of the Territory's natural resources in the Beetaloo. The office will work closely with the Territory Coordinator, who has the ability to provide the strategic grunt needed to enable such significant undertaking. The members of the Beetaloo Project Management Office engage and work closely across agencies to identify the shared responsibilities, constraints and resources required to develop the Beetaloo, including workforce requirements, road and rail infrastructure, and etc. In addition, the agency has been undertaking a substantial amount of work on legislative reform to enable gas production. In February, we introduced the Petroleum Planning and Water Legislation Amendment Bill, which removed provisions for third-party merit review of decisions. Third-party merit review created uncertainty for business and the regulator, increased the risk of project delays and the disruption. Such actions by our government demonstrate to the industry that we are laser focused on rebuilding the territory economy and making our jurisdiction and its regulatory environment attractive for the investment that it requires. Our government has acted swiftly to eliminate delays, disruption and uncertainty, laying the foundation for major economic revival. We know about the potential of the Beetaloo for some time now, but exploration data from last year from Tamboran delivered flow results that were the highest recorded in the Beetaloo to date and equivalent to some of the largest shale wells in the US. And there's more to come. Flow results from Tamboran Shenandoah South 2 well are expected later this month. Empire Energy is set to stimulate the longest lateral well in the Beetaloo next week as it progresses towards pilot production and appraisal gas sales later this year or early in 26. Santos has recently announced it will invest over $200 million in 26 to drill and flow test 3 wells on its permit in the Beetaloo sub-basin as it eyes gas production in 27-28. And Daly Waters Energy, headed by Brian Sheffield, will become the 4th operator in the Beetaloo following some binding agreements with Tamboran Resources. Daly Water Energy will hold key acreage in the Beetaloo and it has a plan to increase development in its world-class shale basin. While there's been lots of exploration happening on our onshore gas sector, we've also seen investment to critical infrastructure in the region. Earlier this year, Tamboran signed an agreement with APA Group for the development of a 37-kilometre long 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙀𝙑 pipeline. This is the first direct pipeline from the Beetaloo sub-basin that will enable gas sales from the region. APA has since lodged its application for a pipeline licence and expects to commence construction of the $70 million pipeline in September this year. This is a key investment towards strengthening the territory's infrastructure. The NT government is itself investing in enabling infrastructure, last month announcing the Territory Energy Link, a proposed infrastructure corridor from Elliott to Darwin, which will enable gas and other vital lines to develop in the Beetaloo come up to the Northern Territory. We often talk about the Beetaloo. However, in April, I toured Central Petroleum's gas field on the Armidale basis to see firsthand a demonstration of the long-term viability and economic value of onshore gas in the Northern Territory. Recent drilling of the West Mereenie 29 and 30 wells has yielded exceptional results for Central Petroleum and its joint venture partners. This group is also planning 2 additional wells in each of Palm Valley and Mereenie fields to further increase its supply for much-needed energy security. All of these bodes well for the Northern Territory economic future and for long-term jobs in the Territory. And it isn't just our onshore sector that is affording significant opportunities in the Northern Territory. I visited the Impex Litchie's natural gas processing plant back in April to see for myself the size and scale of the largest private investments in the Territory ever. With private investment comes opportunity for Territorians, and there will be lots of opportunities when carbon capture and storage and the utilisation of this becomes a reality. The NT government is currently doing the groundwork to enable the carbon capture and storage hub at Middle Arm, but is also working with Impex, Santos and Vopak, who are undertaking their own CCS projects. In a critical milestone announced just a few weeks ago, Impex has commenced its primary front-end engineering work to develop the Bonafide Gulf CCS project. And a milestone for Santos will be delivery of first gas from its Barossa field to the Darwin LNG facility in the coming month. The Territory gas will continue to remain an integral part of our electricity system for years. Our pathway to emissions reduction for the energy sector is centred around affordability, grid security and reliability, not aspirational targets. In March, we announced the scrapping of the former government's unachievable 50% renewable energy generation by 2030. We will not make Territorians pay the price for chasing a previous government's unrealistic targets. Instead, we've announced our plan to secure a Territory's energy future by developing vital reforms to improve grid stability, lower costs, to ensure energy transition. Our government's legislative, regulatory and economic work program in the Northern Territory to energy space is guided by the key principle of enough energy, followed by affordability and reliability and, of course, energy security. The benefits of this to Territorians will be cheaper energy prices and is widely recognised that an abundant, secure and reliable source of energy is critical to attracting and growing businesses and investments in the Northern Territory. We've capped retail electricity prices to 3% and undertaking strategic investment in energy infrastructure and expanding large-scale solar and battery storage. This government recognises that Territory consumers are important and not the need for these lofty targets. We are here to be focused on the Territory consumers to make sure that they pay an affordable price for electricity. And this is why we've made reforms to improve the incentives for households and businesses to do things that support the security and reliability of our power systems. On 1 December last year, we doubled the Home and Battery Scheme, or the HBBS, to manage the impact of rooftop solar systems by increasing the self-consumption of roller rooftop through batteries. And what a great success that has been. The $6 million scheme is now fully allocated, with 300 Territorians receiving grants and completing their installations, with another 250 approved, ready for install. Since the scheme started, we've seen about $70 million of works injected into the Northern Territory economy, supporting small businesses and local employment. Mining is also important. We know that the gas industry, economic value and potential for generating wealth for generations to come. But it is the Territory's mining exploration and mining sector that is currently the single largest contributor to the Territory's own source revenue. This sector contributed over $200 million in mining royalties alone in 23-24, with a similar amount expected in 24-25. The revenue and employment generated by mineral exploration and mining is critical to our government's commitment to rebuild the economy. The CLP government is continuing to back mineral and gas exploration through our $9.5 million per year ongoing Resourcing the Territory program. In February, we announced the opening of the applications for round 18 of the Geophysics and Drilling Grants program. And just yesterday, I was joined by Mark Edwards, who is Managing Director of Prodigy Gold, to announce the successful recipients of round 18 who share in almost $4 million in co-funding. Prodigy Gold was one of the 30 successful recipients. And Mark himself said, without the co-funding support of the NT government, some of these programs would take a lot longer to be initiated, delaying our geological understanding of the regions we work in. These sorts of programs significantly increase our knowledge of the local and regional geology of our projects, could be fast-tracked to the next major discovery. Critical to the NT's government's plan to rebuild the economy is providing a regulatory and investment environment that facilitates projects moving swiftly and successfully to production. One example of our government's work in our jurisdiction is to make more attractive is our recent amendment to the NT payroll tax system, increasing the payroll tax threshold from $1.5 to $2.5 million. Such actions make it easier for small to medium businesses, many of whom contract to major mining and energy projects across the Territory, to thrive and grow, boosting our local economy and our population, and providing certainty and security to Territorians, which they deserve. Other actions including unnecessary barriers that stifle project development. And again, this...
Sorry, Minister, Member for 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙀𝙑𝘼𝙔𝙍.
Just remind the Minister, this is supposed to be a brief opening statement. He's been speaking for 15 minutes now, and the Opposition, Independents and the Greens certainly have
Thank
questions.
you. Member for 𝙍𝙀𝙀𝙼, I take your note. Minister.
Shall I start again?
Minister, if we can just continue.
Other actions include removing unnecessary barriers that stifle project development, and again, that is where our government sees the Territory Coordinator playing a major role alongside our new fast-track approvals task force. We have seen encouraging new investments in the Territory mining sector in recent months, such as the major investment by Pan Am Resources into Tennant mining. The NT's newest mine, Tennant's Noble Knob Gold Project, commenced productions last month, making a recommencement of a large-scale mining in Tennant Creek after a break of more than 2 decades. As the Mining Minister, I was proud to attend the opening of the Noble Knob mine along with the Member for Barkly, Steve Edgington, which has a current mine life of at least 8 years, with plans to extend that to double, and the mine forecast is to produce at least 60,000 ounces of gold, creating hundreds of jobs. I was also pleased to see the recommencement of production and export operations in May of South 32 GEMCO operations on Groote Eylandt, following the destruction of vital infrastructure by Cyclone Megan in March 2024. GEMCO represents one of the largest manganese mines in the world and one of the largest contributors to both the mineral production value and mineral royalties payable to our Treasury Department. I was also pleased to grant Veteran Minerals Amaru Phosphate Project tenure by 2 mineral leases in March this year. This is a critical step to moving the Amaru project forward to production by 2026, sustaining hundreds of jobs in construction and operation for a mine life of 25 years plus. And last week, I visited Newmount's Tanami Gold Mine, who literally have no end in sight of the gold production from their operation, producing over 300,000 ounces of gold per annum, with the mine life extending beyond 2040, employing hundreds of people, providing tens of millions of dollars of royalties to the Northern Territory. The significant expenditure across a large range of infrastructure programs at the Tanami mine, including a 1.5 kilometre shaft. That's literally 5,000 feet straight down, show they have considerable confidence in the Northern Territory and their investment in Northern Territory. The Tanami expansion project too alone estimated to cost over $1 billion. Of course, we know the Territory has also the opportunity to become an important player in global supply chains for the critical minerals that are required for new technology and the energy transition. Earlier this year, released the fully updated 2025 version of the critical minerals in the NT Guide, which defines the Territory's 17 critical minerals along with the 13 emerging others. It is clear that we're moving into an exciting time for the Northern Territory resources sector, and the government is working with industry on realising the Territory's resource potential. It is just as important as granting new mineral leases is seeing the commencement of mining projects, that is the work that goes into remediating our mines. The Territory has a long history of mining, with historical mining activities occurring right across the Territory. Mine remediation legacy and mines are critical to protect the public from the impact of legacy mines and provides valuable employment and economic benefits to the Northern Territory in regions and remote areas. That is why I was pleased to announce in January this year the completion of a significant body of work remediating mines in Tennant Creek. The $5.5 million program of works was undertaken as part of the Legacy Mines Small Mine Safety Program and saw over 200 legacy health and safety issues at small mines addressed. The NT Mine Remediation Fund is a 1% annual levy on the mining securities held by the Department of Mining, which currently stands at just under $100 million. By growing our mining, exploration and mineral activities across the Territory, we will therefore also grow the size of the Mining Remediation Fund, which enables the department to undertake larger scopes of work to address legacy mines' environmental issues right across the Northern Territory. The next 12 months are a pivotal and extremely busy time for the Department of Mining and Energy and myself as the Mining Minister. We will be delivering a broad economic and legislative reforms designed to rebuild our economy and improve the Territorians' lives. And these activities include the production of the first commercial gas and petroleum royalty revenue from the Beetaloo, which helped resolve our energy and security issue, legislative reforms to modernise our electricity market, making it more efficient and better able to deliver cheap energy to Territorians, legislative reforms to modernise and streamline our mineral titles and regulations, legislative reforms to facilitate the development of carbon capture and storage across the Northern Territory, the approval, facilitation and commissioning of new mine developments, creating hundreds of jobs and $billions for the royalties. We are in a great spate, and it's going to be a bright future, and I look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thank you, Minister. Are there any questions relating to the statement? Opposition?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, I asked you the question earlier. You said it was in the mining portfolio area, so I will ask it here again. Minister, can you provide a full breakdown of your travel to Daly Waters on the 7th of November 2024 and the 30th of January 2025, which costs a total of $4,151.70 and $4,717.71 respectively? What was the purpose of these trips? What were the costs categorised as other? And what are the outcomes that were achieved for Territorians with these visits that has accounted for over $5,500 and the total spend for those trips? Minister, I note you charged Territory taxpayers $1,300 for one of the charters, $1,900 for another. What are the other expenses that amount to, on the 7th of November, nearly $2,800 charged to Territory taxpayers and $2,800 on the 30th of January?
Okay, thank you for the question. So on the trip on the 7th of November, we went to the Beetaloo and travelled to EP 98. The visit was hosted by Tamborian's Chief Executive Officer, Farron, I'll just say Farron, and his Vice President of Gas Markets, Michael Flynn, who went on that visit, is what you wanted as well?
Yep.
So I went along, Khoda Patel as the Assistant Minister for Mining and Energy, 𝙍𝙬𝙬𝙎𝙎, the Chief of Staff for Minister Maley, 𝙍𝙬𝙬𝙬𝙎, the Chief Executive Officer of Mining and Energy, James Pratt, the Chief Executive Officer of the Development. And that two went along, and it was a total of $10,000, $10,646.
Thank you. In relation, you have charged Territory taxpayers $2,785.33 listed under other. What are those expenses?
Can we take that question on notice?
Absolutely.
Member for 𝙍𝙬𝙬𝙬𝙎, please restate the question for the record.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. Minister, can you provide a full breakdown of your travel to Daly Waters on the 7th of November 2024 and the 30th of January 2025, which costs a total of $4,151.70 and $4,717.71 respectively? What was the purpose of these trips? Who was on these trips? What were the costs categorised as other? And what outcomes were achieved for Territorians from these visits?
Minister, do you accept the question?
No, I don't accept the question in its entirety because I've just explained who was on it and the purpose. What I was saying to is about the cost, because the question was specifically the $2,000 cost for others, what that was. So that's the question that we're happy to take on notice.
Member for 𝙍𝙬𝙬𝙬𝙎, are you happy with...
I will rephrase the question, Mr Chair. Minister, your travel on the 7th of November 2024 and January 30, 2025 has listed an expense of, in November, $2,785.33 listed as other, and the expenses on the 30th of January 2025, $2,809.03 charged as other. What were those expenses?
Minister, do you accept the question?
Yes, we do.
The question asked by the member for 𝙍𝙬𝙬𝙬𝙎 of the minister has been allocated the number 3.2. Member for 𝙍𝙬𝙬𝙬.
Thank you. Minister, is the Department of Mining and Energy a standalone department?
Yes, it is.
It is. Doesn't sit under Chief Minister and Cabinet.
Well, Chief Minister and Cabinet is the overarching senior government department, but Mines and Energy sits by itself.
Thank you. And what recruitment process was undertaken to appoint the CEO of your department?
Essentially, that when there was the mould changes occurred, the CEOs of the departments were appointed by the Chief Minister and Cabinet, and that's how that recruitment process was undertaken.
Were you involved in the appointment of the Chief Executive Officer of Mines and Energy?
No.
You were not. Thank you. How many ECO positions were either transferred out or transferred in under the machinery of government changes?
We'll just get the information for you.
Thank you.
So your question is how many executive contracts?
With the machinery of government changes, ECO positions are usually transferred out of one agency or brought into an agency. The question is how many were transferred out and how many were either retained or established?
I'll pass down to Joe, the Chief Financial Officer, in relation to answering that question.
Joanna Frankenfeld, Chief Financial Officer. This is a newly created agency, Department of Mining and Energy. The staff came across from the former Agency of Industry, Tourism and Trade. All ECOs at the time of MOG were transferred out of the divisions of Energy, NTGS, OSE, the Deputy of the former Mining and Energy. So nobody lost their jobs. Everyone who was an ECO transferred across from that agency. We also got ECOs transferred in from the gas section of the Department of Chief Minister and Cabinet. Alastair was appointed as CEO, as just explained. He also was formerly in DCM.
Thank you.
And as of the 31st of March, we currently have 18.6 FTEs that are all ECOs.
ECO. And how many of those ECO positions are based in Darwin?
I'll pass that across to the Chief Financial Officer.
All of them.
All of the 18.8.
18.6
18.6 FTEs are based in Darwin.
Yes.
Thank you. Minister, just in your opening statement, you spoke about the battery grant scheme, and I just wanted to ask you, during the election, you promised the $6 million commitment for what was then told to be 500 homes for batteries. Wanting to confirm, the website now says the scheme is closed and there's no guarantee that submitted applications will be assessed. Yet in the 24-25 revised budget shows only 2.8 million of the promised 6 million was spent. Can you please speak to us about how you've reached the full allocation if less than half the money was actually delivered?
Thank you for the question. And so we did allocate the $6 million, and from that, 300 people have received the grants and completed their applications, with a further 250 ready to install. So we've actually put 550 homes, more than the commitment. So we've finished that program, the money's been spent, and those remaining 250 homes have been approved and ready to install.
So those 250 homes, Minister, will be approved, is what you're saying?
Yes.
And can you confirm that you have reached your dead-on $6 million in terms of expenditure for that?
Yeah, the scheme is fully been allocated.
And Minister, is this a scheme that will be renewed in future financial years, or is this a one-off?
This is a one-off scheme that's been fully allocated.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, again, talking about renewable energy, wanting to understand, Minister, if you can talk, as you did in your opening statement, around Territorians obviously relying on and wanting to see a greater emphasis on renewables. Many energy companies are talking about the transition to renewable energies. You have scrapped the renewable energy target. What is your government's commitment around reaching a renewable target of 50%?
We're not going to aim for unachievable targets. I know that the previous government had a target which was unachievable, and it was nowhere near being hit that target. So what we have done is we have focused on the best cost-effective energy for Territorians. So what we want to do is focus on cost of living, and we are going to focus and work towards providing reliable energy at the least cost to Territorians. Right. And that will include a mixture of renewables, of gas, whatever it takes to provide cheap, secure energy to Territorians.
Right. And just wanting to follow on, Minister, you can today give the guarantee that that $6 million will be fully expended when it comes to the batteries?
Yes.
Thank you.
Member for 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙀𝙑, any further questions?
Happy to go to others for this one at the moment.
Member for Johnston? Member for Nightcliff?
Thank you very much. Sorry. So my first question, as reported by the NT Independent in May this year, the Department for Lands Planning and Environment recently disclosed that it resolved 3 incidents relating to the activities of Imperial Oil and Gas, a subsidiary of Empire Energy, at its well pads EP187. While the details of 2 of these incidents were set out in a regulatory statement and published on DLP's website, the details of the 3rd incident have not been provided to the public. Can you confirm there was an issue with the casing of a well on EP187?
I'll pass that to Alistair Tree, the Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Minister. Alistair Trier, Chief Executive Officer, Mining and Energy, and thank you very much for the question. We received that question as a written question on notice, so we'll provide that back in writing. We want to make sure that we don't mislead the committee.
Okay.
Member for Nightcliff, would you like to make that a question on notice?
Well, I think he's saying it's already on a written question. Well, yes, I'll put it on notice to make sure it comes back to me.
Member for Nightcliff, please restate the question for the record.
I'm looking for confirmation that there was an issue. Sorry, start again. Can you confirm there was an issue with the casing of a well on EP 187?
Minister, do you accept the question?
Yes, we do.
The question asked by the member for Nightcliff of the Minister has been allocated the number 3.3. Member for Nightcliff.
Thank you.
Can I just say one thing? I just want to correct the record. I think we spoke earlier about the ECOs in Darwin. There's one interstate. So I just wanted to correct the record that there is one interstate.
Thank you, through the chair. May I have a follow-on question from that?
If it's directly related to what I just asked.
The member for Nightcliff
I'll let
is happy. It's up to the... Yeah.
Okay. It's just another question about the well, so I'll just do this one.
Then we'll come back to the
Yeah,
member.
yeah, that's fine.
Are you able to confirm that that well was intersecting the Anthony Lagoon aquifer? I could take that notice as well, or unless you know.
Can I pass that to James Pratt, the Senior Executive Director of Energy Development and Mining and Energy?
Thanks, Minister. Member for Nightcliff, there are 5 wells that have been drilled on EP 187. Are you able to clarify which well you're referring to?
I can't confirm which well. Do any of them intersect the Anthony Lagoon aquifer?
Several of them do. Sorry, James Pratt, Senior Executive Director, Energy Development. Yes, several of them do, but we can clarify that in the response to your question on notice.
Okay, and so maybe I'll add that to notice just to clarify if the well that had an issue with the casing was intersecting.
Yeah.
What we'll do is we'll do another question on notice, Member for Nightcliff. So, Member for Nightcliff, please restate the question for the record.
If there was a well with an issue in the casing, was it intersecting the Anthony Lagoon aquifer?
Minister, do you accept the question?
Yes, we do.
The question asked by the member for Nightcliff of the Minister has been allocated the number 3.4. Member for Nightcliff, you finished that line of questioning? I will come back to you after the member for 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙀𝙎𝙎
I might just ask just a general question about that. Was there any concern from you about this potential casing problem having implications for the aquifer?
I'll pass down to James Pratt in relation to answering that.
James Pratt, Senior Executive Director, Energy Development. Just want to put on the record there are actually no casing issues on EP 187 with any of the wells. We perform integrity checks. There are no cracks, splits or any casing issues on there, but we'll take your question on notice and come back to you with further information.
Thank you.
Member for 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙬𝙎.
Thank you. Minister, you just mentioned that you wanted to clarify that you have one ECO position outside of Darwin. Where is that position?
Based in Perth.
Based in Perth. And why is that Territory taxpayers paying for a position of an executive contract officer outside of the Northern Territory?
Okay, I'll pass to the Chief Executive Officer of the department to answer that.
So I will go to hand the Deputy Chief in a sec, but it's just this is a highly technical position relating to electricity market reform, and that technical expertise is hard to get, and the person lives in Perth, but Anne might have further detail.
Thanks, Alistair. And Deputy CEO, Department of Mining and Energy. We've got one individual, as the Minister and Alistair have said, located in Perth. I confirm that the position is a really, really challenging position to recruit to. It is a position that is currently heavily engaged in the electricity market reform process, and that requires expertise from not just the Territory, but from outside the Territory as well, to understand what is happening elsewhere in Australia, because there are learnings that we can take out of that. It's a position that we had sought to obviously try and engage locally, but unfortunately that was not successful. So the the current incumbent was successful through a competitive procurement process or recruitment process.
Just to confirm, Minister, this position was originally advertised in the Northern Territory? And then was this person appointed, or did they go through a recruitment process?
So I confirm it was advertised in the Northern Territory and it went through a recruitment process.
And then it went through a recruitment process for the successful applicant who is now based in Perth?
That's correct.
Okay. And can I ask a further question? How many executive or how many consultants have been engaged by the department over the last financial year?
We'll just get the answer. That was provided to you in the global written question, so you've got it, but we'll get the answer and send it back to you.
Sure.
So the answer is 24.
24.
Member for Nightcliff.
Thank you. Sorry, still going on with my original question around the 3 resolved incidents at WellPad EP 187. So I get that you said that there was no casing issues on those wells that we just said before. If not, what was the nature of the 3rd undisclosed incident?
I think we took that question on notice at the beginning, what the nature was, I'm pretty sure. So that'll be the...
So the nature of, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll in that written question that's on notice you've already got, yes. was the question.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I'll Member for Nightcliff, I'll just confirm on the...
Yeah.
And we're happy to amend it if it needs to be.
Thank you.
The question on notice 3.3 related to was there an issue? Minister, if you're happy, I can amend 3.3 to add the nature of
And
the
what was
issue.
the nature? Thank you.
Are you happy to
We're happy to
accept
amend
that
that, yep.
change?
Thank you very much.
Question 3.3 has been amended to add the nature of any incident.
Thank you.
Member for Nightcliff.
And so as those incidents, I think, have been deemed resolved, who makes the decision that the incident is resolved under the Petroleum Act?
Yeah, I'll pass it down to James Pratt, who can answer that question.
James Pratt, Senior Executive Director, Energy Development. As I stated before, there are no issues with this well, so I just want to clarify that. But when matters arise that require, I guess, further interest and understanding, we have a team of engineers that look into it. They diagnose if an issue's there or if mitigation efforts are suitable, and then through delegations within the Department of the Petroleum Act, a decision's made on whether to escalate it to the Minister or make a decision in-house, and that's how that matter was resolved.
Okay. So, I mean, I hear that you're saying that there's no issue with the well, but there was the 3 incidents, 2 of them were publicised and 1 wasn't. So there was some incident, right?
Look, we can take that on notice. I think that's the issue of the game, the question we just modified. What was the nature of that question? So I'm happy to amend it again, but can you read out, Chair, what the...
How about I ask another one on notice, just to add another one?
Member for Nightcliff.
What was the nature of the 3rd incident that occurred at EP 187 that was not provided to the public?
We accept that question.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Sorry, Member for Nightcliff, we're just...
Oh, sorry.
Okay. The question asked by the Member for Nightcliff of the Minister has been allocated the number 3.5. Member for Nightcliff.
So, sorry, I'm just, as we're going, do you provide statements describing the process by which the incident was investigated and resolved under the Petroleum Act? Do you provide sort of...
I'll pass that down to James Pratt to answer that.
James Pratt, Senior Executive Director, Energy Development. not trying to be cute, is that a hypothetical? Because I stated before we didn't investigate the well because there was no issues. So can you just clarify your question, please?
Okay, so you didn't. I know, I'm just having trouble with the fact that there was supposedly an incident. I know you're saying there was nothing wrong with it, but there was an incident that got resolved.
I think we need to deal with.
Okay.
We need. Yeah, Minister. I've got the floor. I've got the floor. Member for Nightcliff.
Okay, I understand. Yep, I'll try and reword. Look, I'll leave that for now, and I'll wait till I get that things on notice. I think it's sort of changed my line of questioning there.
Okay.
Change of topic. Minister, you have indicated that the cost of the transition to renewables should be a concern to taxpayers. Is the cost to taxpayers of gas-fired energy production also a consideration of your department?
What we want to do is make sure that we have energy security for the Northern Territory for the taxpayer to supply cheap energy, but also cheap energy for manufacturing in the Northern Territory. We know that we've got a lot of gas just to the south of us, and we need to get that to market, whether it's be in the Northern Territory or to another place, maybe the East Coast, but it needs to be competitive. No one's going to buy gas just because it's from the Beetaloo. It needs to be a competitive price. So what we want to do is do whatever we can to make sure that the gas will end up at a competitive price, because we know the gas industry literally employs, I think from memory, 11,000 people in over 3,000 businesses directly. So the economic benefit to the Territory, not only from the gas and selling the gas or using the gas into our power station to literally keep the lights on and keep the aircon going, it's also in a way to start reducing the debt through the mining as well. We're doing mining and gas, so both of those go hand in hand, of course. But if we want to focus on gas directly, the indirect jobs, we know Impex was the largest private enterprise job here. We know Santos have got a facility. I know we know Santos have just got, I know Barossa Gas is coming online. So the value adding that we can do as in employment, and not only directly employed, but I can list a whole range of people like hairdressers,
that's okay.
mechanics.
I'm not asking about jobs at this stage. I've got some more questions about jobs.
Yeah,
in a
so I'm
minute.
just answering the question.
Oh no, the question was, do you consider the cost of gas-fired energy? But I'll continue with that. What environmental and climate change considerations does the department make when determining new mines a change? So, is there a formal process in which climate change must be a detail for your department to consider?
Our department deals with the mining tenure, and then it goes to environmental improvement through the environmental department. So I think that question would be better off given to the Minister for the Environment. We effectively give a mining tenement about tenure, and then part of that next step is an approval and environmental side of it, which is not this department.
Okay, thank you. What is the cost to the taxpayers of the 9-year gas supply deal signed with Tambrand in 2024?
Sorry, what was that again?
What is the cost to taxpayers of the 9-year gas supply deal signed with Tambrand in 2024?
Look, there was 3 gas sales agreements which were being signed through Central, Tamborva and Empire, because we know that E&I for Blacktip is the gas was going down. We know they've re-drilled and they've got more gas there. But the gas price incentive you're asking for is a confidential price, so we're not going to disclose what the actual amount is. But what it is doing is making sure that the Northern Territory has gas available for our gas-fired power station, which runs Darwin and Katherine, and also make sure that the gas is going to be available for manufacturing. Like I've said earlier, 11,000 jobs directly, literally thousands more indirectly. So we need to make sure that we focus on getting gas to the Northern Territory at a competitive price to literally keep the lights on.
Okay, thank you. But just to clarify, that means you're not going to tell the taxpayers how much that gas deal was?
Well, for one thing, they haven't produced any gas. So the taxpayer...
But you signed a deal.
The taxpayer hasn't spent any money at buying gas from Tamborva at the moment. They are, in a way, in processing, and I can tell you I hope to buy gas from them and I hope to spend lots of money buying gas from them because we need the gas in the Northern Territory. But right now, we get our gas... You've asked a question. Can I have an opportunity to finish?
Member for Nightcliff,
he's answered it. He's not...
Member for Nightcliff,
but he's
we will
answered
let the Minister answer.
Continue to waste time.
Member for Nightcliff, we'll let the Minister answer. If you feel if you feel time is ever being wasted, or if you have any
No,
interjection,
I got the answer. It's fine. It's great.
just come to me
Okay.
as chair.
Thank you, Chair. I've got the answer that it's not going to be publicly released. So thank you. Can I move on to my next question?
Yes,
Through the
Member.
chair, I just have a follow-on question, if I can, briefly. Minister, you spoke about ENI, and of course they were running out of gas, as you has mentioned, and now they've drilled and they've found more. Is there conversations at a department level around the Territory having a gas reservation policy in terms of security rather than selling our gas and then buying it back?
Look, we're exploring all options in relation to making sure that the Territory get the best bang for buck for gas. Gas hasn't come out of the Beetaloo. If there's an existing contract with ENI, well, that's an existing contract, and I'd assume it'd be very difficult to change an existing contract. But moving forward, right now we are trying to get the best bang for buck for gas in the Northern Territory, and we want to see production come to the Northern Territory to provide cheap electricity, and we're looking at all options in relation to what we can do to get the gas to the Northern
So
Territory.
you haven't, just to be clear, you haven't ruled out a gas reservation policy?
We haven't ruled out anything. What
thank
we're
you.
trying to do is make sure, and like I said, there's already gas agreements signed with other gas providers, but moving forward, we need to make sure we get bang for buck, because we need cheap energy for Territory.
Member for Nightcliff.
Thank you, Chair. So, okay, so we're not going to get the costs to the taxpayers of the gas deal signed with Tamboran.
No, so you have zero, because there's been no cost, because there's been no gas sold. So that's the answer.
Okay, but there is a deal signed, correct? I would like to know the amount on that deal.
Unfortunately, that's commercial in confidence, just like
Okay.
any other private contract.
Okay, would that also be the same then for the contract signed with Empire Energy in 2024 and the 6-year deal with Central Petroleum?
Yes.
Okay, so, and there's no way I can get them on notice? No. So for 37-year-old gas-fired generators at Channel Island Power Station will required to be replacement or refurbished in the next 4 years, what is the anticipated cost of that to the taxpayers?
I think I think TGen are here next week, the end of next week sometime. You need to ask that question to them. They're responsible for that.
Okay. So there has been some reports by energy analysts, one of them Tom Quinn, I think, who estimated the value of all those contracts that I mentioned at around $3.98 billion. Would I be correct in that ballpark figure, about $4 billion?
Well, that's a hypothetical question, Chair. And
No, fine, you can answer it. So if you are concerned about the impact of a transition to renewables on Territory taxpayers, then why not be honest about the amount that is being paid to the gas industry, which is in presumably the billions?
we are being honest. We've paid them zero money. We haven't brought any gas from them.
Yes, but there is an amount in the contracts that there's going to be paid.
I think, Member for Nightcliff, we've been told it's commercial in confidence. There's obviously reasons behind that.
Sure. I'll move on.
Thank you.
No worries. So in March, Minister, you revoked the Territory's renewable energy target, stating that it would not be achievable without immense cost to the taxpayer. You claimed the cost to Territorians would be about $5 billion. Once again, energy analysts have shown us, energy analyst Tom Quinn subsequently described this on ABC's Country Hour as a, quote, out-and-out lie. And it was subsequently revealed that previous government estimates put that figure at about $280 million, not billion. What calculations were you referring to, Minister, when you stated such an inflated cost for achieving the renewable target?
Look, that was an estimated cost, and I said that it was an estimated cost, and I certainly didn't say that's exactly what it was. But what we do know is that the previous Labor government failed to anywhere near that target, and what we've done is we've switched the target now, so we're not just going for a target that's unachievable. What we're trying to achieve is the lowest cost electricity for Territorians.
So wait, are you saying that you don't know what the cost analysis you went to calculate that figure that you put out there?
I'm saying that what we talked with industry, and that was an estimate.
Can you please maybe just elaborate on that, how you came about with the estimate of $5 billion?
No, I can't, because it was an estimate, and we discussed with the industry, and that's what we estimated it at.
Okay, but you have to agree that you're putting out figures like that out to the public, that it's going to cost these things, but you've got no ability to show us how that figure came about.
Look, we discussed it with the industry, and that was a figure that we estimated because we know that the previous government failed so dismally getting there, and they were so far behind. And we're banking on costs. Everything to Territory is expensive. What we need in the Northern Territory is cheap, reliable gas, and what we need is cheap, reliable energy, and we're going to do whatever we can, whether it's a mix of gas, whether it's a mix of renewables, but we want to make sure that the Territorians aren't paying high electricity prices just because some unachievable target that the government have put in their policy. So we're focusing on cheap, reliable energy for Territorians, whether it be for electricity, whether it be for business, whether it be for manufacturing.
Okay.
We'll just, sorry, Member for Nightcliff, just quickly, I'll just draw on a ruling I made yesterday. If we can remove the use and just it's government, the department. Thank you, Member for Nightcliff.
Yeah, I guess the question is that the minister put out there or spoke about a cost of $5 billion, and experts in the field have said it's in the hundreds of millions, not billions. How can the public, if you cannot tell us how you came up with this cost, how can the public rely on that figure at all?
See, you're relying on one expert, which is particularly view, and even I think you said $280 million. To the average Territorian, $280 million is a lot of money.
Not as much as
so what
$5
we want to
billion.
do is we want to make sure that we're going to focus on what the best we can do for the Territorian's hip pocket. And you've got one particular person, and other industry will say more. So this is a cost that it's a hypothetical question because who really knows what it's going to cost? But what we know is going to cost a lot of money. It's going to be high no matter what it is, and the longer you leave it, the more it costs. And we know that the previous Labor government just kicked the can down the road and was just unachievable. And to do that on such a short period of time, because that time period was coming up very soon, would make it even higher because you're rushing things and you're trying to prioritise work, which is even more expensive.
Minister,
so what we did is focused on reliable energy at the cheapest cost to Territory.
Minister, I will also just apply the same ruling if you could refer through me of the member of Nightcliff instead of your member for Nightcliff.
So it is a pretty undisputable fact at this point. It's the CSIRO, Australian Energy Market Operators, International Energy, they show that renewables and solar are the cheapest form of energy, not gas. So why then, during a cost of living crisis, have you decided to cut investments in renewable energies?
Because if you're talking about renewables being a cheap form of energy, and I think I said in my statement that renewables is a cheap form of energy, but it's not reliable. Let's give you some examples. If you've got a electricity market that needs 200 megawatts, and you have 200 megawatts of solar, you need to have a spinning reserve ready in case there's a cloud comes over, in case there's a thunderstorm. We have in the Northern Territory, we have monsoons where it literally rains for a week straight. So we're talking about the cost of renewables, but you need to factor in the cost of firming the electricity market as you move forward, Mr. Chair. So you can have your 200 megawatts of renewable sitting out there, but if you don't have something similar sitting in spinning reserve for those days when the sun is not shining, or where there's an issue in relation to an extended period of rain, we need to make sure that that spinning reserve is available because people in the Northern Territory want the power. We need the power turned on, and we need fridges and shops and hospitals and all those sort of places. So if you factor in the cost of 200 megawatts of renewables plus another 200 megawatts of spinning reserve sitting there available to cover the unreliability of the renewables, that's a factor that needs to be factored into any electricity market. So what we've done is we've focused on what is the cheapest, reliable and security energy for Territorians. And I've said at the beginning, that is a mixture of renewables and it's a mixture of gas as we move forward. And we need to get that balance right because we can't just have renewables. We can't just have gas because, again, I accept gas is more. It costs money. Everything costs money. But how do we get that balance right of how much do we need to have that spinning reserve? Because we all know that renewables doesn't work at night time, for example. Again, if you're renewable, you've got to have batteries. We know we've got to have batteries, and so you've got to have reliability problems. So it's all getting that balance right. And our main focus is on getting cheap energy for Territory.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Nightcliff.
Thank you, Chair. I will ask that the answers are concise. We've got a lot to get through. I'll move on then from renewables. I want to clarify something about job projections for large projects. Now, the job estimates cited by Northern Territory governments are in fact job years. So not the number of jobs created. So this metric, just to make it clear, and I want to clarify this with you, the metric recounts jobs for each and every year in which they exist. For example, if a mining project creates 10 new full-time positions for 10 years, this creates 100 years of job employment, but clearly only actually creates 10 jobs. But your government has presented this as to the public as 100 jobs. This is wildly misleading, is it not?
Look, I'm really confused with your question. So can you either break it down or rephrase it?
So can you, okay, when the government talks about projections for jobs, for projects.
Can you give an example of when government's done that then?
You've done it for 𝙍𝙬𝙍𝙬𝙍𝙬, you've got...
Committee,
well, can you give me a specific
Minister,
example?
Minister, I will let the member for Nightcliff ask her question.
It's done regularly, right, for all the projects you give estimates on. Can you just let me finish?
Okay.
And in those, the way they are calculated by the government is in job years. My question is, you might not be aware of it, but that's how... No, continue if you've got an answer.
Well, my answer is we're really confused of what you're saying. I've never heard of job years ever in all the dealings that I've done. So I don't know, Mr. Chair. I'm really confused. That's why I'm asking you to restate the question.
Thank you, Minister. I'll speak with the member for Nightcliff. Member for Nightcliff, maybe give me the question. I'll see if we can get there.
I would just like the government to clarify to the public how they calculate job estimates for large projects. The way that I understand it is that they are actually job years. So, it's a metric they use where for each and every year in which they exist is counted as a job.
Can you give me an example where that metric's used then, like a practical example? Because
yes.
I've never heard that metric used ever.
Yes, for the 𝙍𝙬𝙍𝙍. For the 𝙍𝙬𝙍𝙍 job projections.
Well, no, I need a specific example. You're saying...
Okay,
Minister,
here we go.
Perhaps I'll ask, how does the department project job projections?
You know what? One way to resolve this, we don't do that to start with. So it may be better that question gets transferred to DPAR, the Department of Trade and Business, about business. So it might be a way to ask the Minister when she's in next week how to do that.
Sorry, I've got it here.
What we do is we direct jobs and indirect jobs. If you're a direct job, you're employed by a company in the gas industry. If you're an indirect job, you're a hairdresser who cuts the hairdresser off of gas.
Okay, thank you. I have got a number here that the Territory Government has projected that fracking in the 𝙍𝙬𝙍𝙍 will create over 13,000 jobs. So how did that figure come about?
I might let James Pratt talk to that about how he was involved in that industry.
James Pratt, Senior Executive Director, Energy Development. Member for Nightcliff, the 13,611 jobs that I think you're referring to is from the Pepper Inquiry's economic analysis of jobs in the 𝙍𝙬𝙍𝙍. Ace or Allen was contracted to do that work. Noting your comments earlier, these were jobs, both direct and indirect. These weren't in job years, they were full-time equivalents. So there's 13,611 jobs over 25 years, both indirect and direct, from the Ace Islands projections for shale gale scenario. That equates to 524 direct and indirect jobs per year as an FTE, not job years.
Okay, thank you. That's an answer. Thank you. Can I then just get a confirmation from the government that you don't use the job years metric in any of your job projections?
Okay, I've never heard of that. Okay. But again, I think you should direct that question to TBAR.
No, I would like to direct it to you on notice.
But I've answered the question then.
No, your answer was that you have never heard of that before.
Member for Nightcliff, I can't. The Minister's given the question.
Okay,
you can ask a follow-up question.
Sure. Through the chair, may I ask? The Minister has stated that they'd never heard of it before. It's not exactly a confirmation that it's not used. I would like to put a question on notice to say, does the department use the metric of job years when calculating jobs for their projects?
Minister.
So look, the answer is no, we don't use it.
Member for Nightcliff, any follow-up? No, on that one. Okay, Member for Nightcliff.
Thank you. I would like to ask, I'm not sure. Yeah, I can ask the Minister. Minister, are you able to tell me what Mr. Trier's relationship is with Stuart Knowles, the Territory Coordinator, and how you will manage the conflict of interest given his role as the CEO of Mining and Energy and Stuart Knowles' role as the Territory Coordinator?
Well, I think that's a hypothetical question.
It's been thank you. It's been established that there is a relationship. I would just like to understand what that relationship is and how that you will manage the conflict of interest.
What I will say, there's two standing orders this kind of crosses into, 233 and 109. Then we need to have a sound basis when asking such question. So I'll just remind of the sound basis required.
I believe I'm asking.
Hang on, Minister.
Two things. Yeah.
Hang on, Minister. So a reminder of the sound basis required.
Yes.
And we can't go into imputations or inferences.
Yes.
I will hand back over Member for Nightcliff.
Thank you.
Member for Nightcliff will ask the question. Whatever question she wants to answer, we will then hear from the Minister the answer.
Okay, thank you. I believe, all right, I'll phrase this in a way that I believe is in line with the standing orders. What is the relationship between Mr. Trier and Mr. Knowles, and how would any potential conflict of interest between their two roles be managed?
Okay, two things. First, and we're still on the opening statement, it's not relevant, but I will answer the question. If there are any conflicts of interest with Alistair or anyone in the department, it's all managed through the Code of Conduct and how it deals with conflict of interest, just as an MLA does. So it will be done as per the requirements of the NT Government Code of Practice.
Okay, thank you.
Member for Johnston.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, what was the total revenue that the NT Government collected from all mining activities in the Northern Territory in the reporting period?
It's just under $200 million, and it's in Budget Paper 3 at page 106, from memory.
Thank you. What percentage of all government revenue collected came from mining?
Well, the problem you've got is we also get revenue from the federal government, because we get about $7 billion, and a lot of that money is also come from the mining industry, so I wouldn't be able to give you that breakdown.
What percentage of Northern Territory budget money came from Northern Territory mining?
I can tell you that mining is just under 200 million, it's on budget paper, but I think that question needs to be directed to Treasury, because they're the ones who can deal with that. We're a department, so we wouldn't be able to give you that information accurately, and I can ask you to direct that question to Treasury.
Okay, thank you. Can you please tell us the total amount spent on subsidies to the mining industry over the reporting period?
The mining industry is in general, or all mining?
All mining.
Not including grants?
Not including?
Like we have the grant, we just did $9.5 million of grants for co-drilling in the geoscience grant. And so can you narrow down your question, please? Because we're happy to answer, we just need to answer a question that's answerable.
Can you explain to me, sorry, again, like you said before, I'm confused.
Well, we just want your question, is it grants? You said the question was all money paid to mining. So in what aspect? Are we talking about grants? We're talking about...
I'm talking about any subsidies provided to the mining industry.
Okay. I'll pass to Alistair Trier.
Yeah, thanks very much, Alistair Trier, Chief Executive, Department of Mining and Energy. Thanks for your question, Member for Johnson. Really, the only program that we have that I'm aware of is the Northern Territory Geological Surveys grants programs. There are a range of things underneath that, so I'll ask the Executive Director of the Geological Survey to answer that question, please.
Thank you.
Ian Scrimger, Senior Executive Director, Northern Territory Geological Survey. Thanks, Alistair, and thanks, Member for Johnson. The Geophysics and Drilling Collaborations Program is a program that provides around $4 million a year in co-funding through a competitive grants process for industry to co-fund innovative or innovative programs or programs by industry, either drilling, geophysics, or other programs where industry is trying new techniques or innovating to grow the exploration industry. So this program is particularly targeted at junior exploration companies and trying to provide an incentive for them to spend their money here in the Territory rather than elsewhere, to reward companies that are using innovation or testing new techniques, and also to grow the knowledge base of the Territory's geology and resources by making all that information open file within 6 months. So the Minister just yesterday announced the most recent round of funding. It was 38 projects from 30 companies that were awarded $3.896 million in funding. 11 of these are companies that were funded for the first time, many of them new entries into the Northern Territory. This funding is based on technical merit and is awarded on a competitive process. So we don't regard it as a subsidy as such for industry. It's government co-funding high quality projects by industry that will assist all companies and bring forward new resource developments in the Territory. That's the intent of the program. The program provides co-funding up to 50% of program costs, up to a capped amount, depending on the type of program, between $50,000 and $200,000 per program. But that money is only paid out when industry have completed the program and fully acquitted that, reported everything to government, and once we're happy with it, they receive their the 50%.
Alistair, you got something more to add?
Yeah, if I could just add the importance of this program. Firstly, exploration is high risk and quite often very little reward. I think the ratio is somewhere between 100 and 1,000 exploration projects per mine. So that's the first thing. It's a bit like fishing. If you don't have your rod in the water, you don't catch a fish. The second component is, as Ian's described, it's a highly competitive market. We think we have excellent geology and excellent resource potential, but we are competing, and not only nationally but internationally. And we would like to see people put their exploration money in the ground here to see what the potential of the Northern Territory is.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand the rationale.
Can I just add one more thing to that? Not only spending the money here by this, but the jobs that they create while they're here. They go and hire a car. They go and stay at these regional roadhouses. So the money that the junior explorers spend into the economy is also benefited because, I'm sure you've travelled out bush a lot. It's expensive. You need to make sure you've got the right equipment. So there's a flow-on effect from these grants.
Thank you. So my question is, what is the what I would like to know is what's the total figure of all monies paid to the mining industry, whether it's grants, whether it's subsidies?
From our department, that's the only grant process that we've got available. Do you want some more information? We'll give you some more here now about it.
Ian Scrimgeour, Senior Executive Director, Northern Territory Geological Survey. In the reporting period, it was the amount expended was $0.978 million, so just slightly under $1 million, with an estimate of what was expended in this current financial year of in the order of $2 million.
Thank you.
And sorry, I should just clarify the reason that is much less than what was committed by government is that many companies struggle to get those projects completed for various reasons. So unless the company completes the program, the money doesn't get expended. So it's a lot less than that committed $4 million.
Sure. So that's the money from mining and energy?
Correct.
Are you able to tell me what money has been given from other departments, or is that a question I need to ask to other departments?
You have to ask that other departments.
Okay. All right.
Or the treasurer.
Yeah, thank you. What are you able to tell me what the total revenue collected from the mining industry through royalties minus any payments made to them is?
Just under that 200 million. I think you go to budget book 3 at page 106. It's got that figure, the line figure there.
I think it's actually close to 300.
Okay, we'll just double check that figure. Just hold on.
Thank you.
Sorry, I made a mistake. It was just under 300 million. It's 295 million, so I was 100 million out. I apologise for that, so I correct your record. The royalties is $298 million. That's in this reporting year only.
Sure, okay. And you've outlined the subsidies from your department, and I will inquire about subsidies from other departments.
Yeah.
Where?
Yep.
Yeah.
No worries.
Are you able to provide a breakdown of expected revenue from mining royalties over the forward estimates?
I'll just double check that for you.
It's in the budget.
It'll just be in the same line. We'll just read it out. So the year after that, the next year will be 346.
And that's it.
And then that's as far as we've only gone 2 years. So it's going to be an increase of, roughly $50 million. So that's next financial year, $350 million a year.
Lots of that's to do with Gemco reopening.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to, just final question, I just want to clarify to make sure you said that the total revenue is 200 million?
Sorry, it's 300 million. I made a mistake. I want to correct the record. I thought it was 200. It's 298 million. So I apologise for misleading.
Thank you. And that's out of our total budget of 7 billion, is that correct?
That's our revenue in, yes.
Yeah, yes. Okay, thank you. So what percentage is that? Is anyone better at maths than me? Thank you.
Oh, we've got a mathematician right here.
We
Could probably
do.
it.
I'm working for free.
You're being paid to sit there, Andrew. Okay, thank you.
No further questions on the statement? Okay.
I have one quick question, sorry.
Okay. Member for Khoda.
One quick question. How many mines are currently operating in the territory that are pulling something out of the ground? And are there more mines coming online that are finishing up?
So right now there's 8 mines coming in the territory, and I was South 32 and Green Island has just restarted mining. They had a infrastructure issue because the cyclone came through, and I was down at the granites in Tanami just very recently, and they've just installed a 1.5 kilometre shaft right down, and that's designed because they're operating about 1.8 kilometres underground, and the time it was taking to get their ore trucks to the top and back was very very prohibitive for them. So what they've done now is they've got essentially a small crushing plant 1 kilometre underground where they crush the rock and they put it into a tunnel, and then they can ship it, so they'll save time. They'll be able to do more ore. There is Tennant Mining, which has just started in Tennant Creek, which is the mining the tailings of the Noble's Knob. And I was down there for that opening as well with the South African company who's come, which is a great news for the territory because international companies are looking at the territory. We know that mining, we've got a great geological survey, we've got lots of rock right around the territory, but unfortunately those minerals don't just stop at our boundary and they go into WA and Queensland, so we need to make sure that the territory is competitive, and that's why we're here to keep the community safe, rebuild the economy and our lifestyle, and mining is super important to that. So the Tennant Creek mining, they're going for the tailings 8 years, and when I was speaking to them, they've got a plan to commence mining when they think another 8 to 10 years of mine life in Tennant Creek. So, and also we spoke about the program about the junior explorers. Great to see that there's people out exploring right across the Northern Territory. The Amaru phosphate in Central Australia is another a really great mine that's kicking off into production. Or is it mining or is it still exploration?
Still exploration.
Exploration, but when I was speaking to the proponents, there's a large volume of ore. The question is going to be, can we get it to a market at a competitive price? So we are well placed in the mining industry to kick off more mines. We just need to make sure we give them certainty, and it goes back to energy. It's about making sure that we've got the right environment and things, for example, the territory coordinator, the payroll tax, and also the approval task force, that all working together to make sure the territory is the most competitive place to do business.
Okay, well, the committee will now proceed to consider the estimates of proposed expenditure contained in the Appropriation Bill 2526 as they relate to the Department of Mining and Energy. Before I go into questions, I'll just introduce a new process. So, if you feel your answer has been given, please through me through the chair. I will then give the minister a short period to wrap up, and that will end that question. The committee will now proceed to consider, are there any agency-related whole-of-government questions on budget and fiscal strategies? Opposition? No. Open to the floor. That concludes consideration of agency-related whole-of-government questions on budget and fiscal strategies. The committee will now take questions on Output Group 3, Mining and Energy, Output 3.1, Northern Territory Geological Survey. Are there any questions? Opposition? No. Are there any other questions? That concludes consideration Output 3.1. The committee will now consider Output 3.2, Mining Development. Are there any questions? No. That concludes Output 3.2. The committee will now proceed to Output 3.3, Energy Development. Are there any questions?
Just a question.
Member for Nightcliff.
If I have questions on solar and batteries, would that be best here or in 3.4?
Minister?
3.4. Thank you.
That concludes consideration of Output 3.3. The committee will now move on to Output 3.4, Sustainable Energy Development. Are there any questions?
Our questions have been answered.
Member for Nightcliff.
Thank you very much. In regards to the remote renewable power rollout, how will the benefits of renewable power in remote NT communities, including reduced energy costs, be shared by community members?
Can I just clarify, how will the cost of those electricity be shared by community members?
How will the benefits of renewable power? So the benefits that renewable power will bring, which may include, will include reduced energy costs, how will that be shared by community members in remote areas?
Well,
how will they all have access to the...
Well, again, I think it's probably a question for Power and Water because they're the ones that do I think you're talking about the hybrid power systems, which have got the diesel and they've got batteries and they've got solar panels, and it's a hybrid system. And I've seen a few of them at some of the homeland communities, and I'm sure Member for 𝙍𝙬, and they do a great job. So the benefit to the community would be almost unmeasurable. I'm sure that they've got reliable power because we know, especially in the north, that we have the wet season and the dry season, people can't get there, the roads become damaged. So I just think that there's the benefits would be massive because the people get cheap energy. And again, I've spoken about cheap energy, I think 1,000 times today.
Yeah.
Yes. No matter where you live, the territory government wants to make sure that you've got cheap energy. Government's Indigenous Essential Service Program is delivering it to almost 40,000 residents, 72 remote communities across the Northern Territory. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. And so this is a question someone's asked me to ask, so I'm just trying to make sure that I've got it. I think they were concerned about how equitably will the benefits of renewable energy be made?
Well, I think anyone can have a toaster. Yeah, Power and Water. But the benefits of having reliable energy in community would be like having reliable energy in a cattle station or a fishing camp or whatever you want to talk about would just be absolutely unmeasurable because I think we all know to be able to turn the power on and have a cup of coffee and whenever you like is very...
Thank you, Minister. I'll move on. So in early 2024, the Federal Labor Minister, Chris Bowen, offered $250 million to build a 70-megawatt big battery in Darwin region to enable existing and more solar farms to join the DKIS, is that how we say it, grid. I just want to clarify, because I know you spoke about, in the opening statement, about battery subsidy. So is this battery that was offered by the federal government, the $250 million, has that been paid or is it still available, or what are the plans to progress that battery?
Thank you for the question, and I'll pass to Ann Tan, the Deputy Chief Executive of Mining Energy, to answer that. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Member for Nightcliff. The federal government has provided, at this stage, $15 million, so I'm not sure where the $250 million is from. It's a different program that relates to the $250 million. I can go a bit into that.
Yes, please do.
The federal government has given us $15 million, and that has gone towards BESS 1, which is currently being commissioned through Territory Generation on their site at Channel Island.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think when I said earlier, we talked about cheap power, and when I talked about renewables being the cheapest, and they are the cheapest, even with the instability that was mentioned, because that instability is overcome by big batteries. And, you know, the engineering and technology, it all exists. It's just down to political will. You know, if countries like Germany, which have way less sunshine, can have more solar than us, there's no excuse. we're just paying for, I'm concerned that we are paying for gas instead of just doing the battery upgrades that we need to do to get us on solar, and that in the meantime that is bleeding the taxpayers dry. So with battery development, the 35 megawatt and 35 megawatt hour that one, the DK BESS, sorry, is currently being installed. Is it finished being installed at Channel Island?
You want to ask that question about the update of the battery?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that question, Member for Nightcliff. That battery has been constructed. It's currently undergoing commissioning, and perhaps it's a question that could be directed to Territory Generation next week.
Okay.
They're probably best placed to respond to that in terms of the technical detail of where that commissioning is at.
Okay. And are you able to just explain to me what commissioning it's running or
No, you have to really talk to TGen. We don't want to mislead you. It's their battery. They're the ones who will deal with that, and you get an opportunity next week.
Well, this might be something, though, that I'll continue. The issue with that one is that it's far too small to make a real impact on our energy grid. We need to be looking to something that already exists. So in WA, at Collie, they've got a big battery one, which is 219 megawatts and 877 megawatt hours. So their battery is designed for, it's very, very similar amount of demand that we have here. Are we looking at doing a larger battery that can actually deal with the instability that you mentioned, so we don't have to waste our money on gas?
I'll pass to the Chief Executive Officer about.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙀𝙑𝘼𝙔𝙍𝙎𝙏, Chief Executive Mining and Energy, and thanks for the question, Member for Nightcliff. I think you're going into specifics. What we're currently doing at the moment is a body of work to understand the dynamics across the supplies, the demands, the networks, and the different mechanisms that come in from both a renewable point of view, the different forms of firming, which you talk to batteries, but there's also syncons, and then there's also just having thermal generation, and they all have strengths and weaknesses. So that work's underway and being considered. The specifics, some things have been done. For example, the battery that you mentioned, your view is that that's too small. That work needs to be worked through and understood, and further decisions will be coming. But Anne, did you want to provide any more detail?
Thanks, Alistair, and thank you for the question, Member for Nightcliff. So what Alistair is alluding to is the work that the government is currently undertaking to develop a whole-of-system plan for our energy system. That is in progress. There have been some preliminary results that have come through, but obviously it's going to be quite an extensive process to finalise what that system plan looks like. What that system plan will ultimately do is determine the optimal size, location, timing for when electricity system infrastructure should be brought online and installed. And that will then provide the evidence base for determining the level and the quantum of battery energy requirements, for example.
Okay, thank you. And so do you have a timeline for that whole system plan when you'll sort of be finished that?
At this stage, it's we're expecting that it will be complete by Q4 of 2025.
Great, thank you. Thanks very much for those answers. And I'm really glad to hear that, because I guess my overall concern really, and this might be more just a general policy, without getting into the specifics of megawatt hours, is that we are just dragging our feet with this, and every dollar we spend on gas is a dollar we're not spending on batteries. And it's just such a waste of money, and I want people to have cheaper power. So I guess if I can turn that into a question, I just want to, when the technology exists to stabilise the grid through batteries, why are we wasting money on gas instead of just getting us hooked up to renewables?
Yeah, it's to do with cost. You know, we know that this battery has been in commissioning for a long time, and we need to get a cheap energy to the territory. We know that the previous Labor government had this target, which was unachievable. They had 8 years of themselves. The Labor government had been in for like 19 or 20 or out of the last 23 years for a long time, except for that 4 years of the CLP, and they didn't get near that target. So what we need to do is make sure that we focus on what the best outcome for Territorians are with that cheap, reliable energy. So I'll pass to Alistair to continue, but that's what we're focused on.
Could I just respond to that, though, just quickly on the cost? Okay, sure.
Thanks very much, Minister, and thanks, Member for Nightcliff. So I think the thing is you talked about the technology, but what we've got is a series of pre-existing arrangements, particularly from a physical point of view, and it's not, you just can't sort of take one out and put a new thing in. It's all about transition, and transition takes time because the fundamentals to transition are cost, reliability and sustainability, and they all have different I suppose, tensions, if you like, and we're moving from where we are now to where we'd like to be, but it takes a whole lot of planning and understanding the implications across those three things, that reliability, that cost and that sustainability. So technology exists. Some of that technology is not as robust as we'd like it to be yet. Others might have different views, but it's really about the fact that we've got pre-existing arrangements, and we need to get it right going forward as best we can.
Thank you for the answer. I mean, the technology with it existing, if it's robust enough for Germany, I'm sure it's robust enough for our son. And I just want to come back to the comment about cost. I just want to make it clear to Territorians that the cost, if we conservatively in the billions for the gas deals, versus hundreds of millions for renewables.
Well, see, that's a misleading statement because you're talking about billions of dollars, which is just not true. And what we're trying to do, remember, renewables is part of our plan. And batteries are part of our plan, where it seems to be, if living in an ideal world, you would only have renewables. So we know that doesn't work. So we need to make sure, and I'm not sure what the German system is, but I bet you they've got a firming backup system somewhere there as well, which maybe you haven't spoken about, maybe you chose not to speak. I've got no idea. But what we need to do is to make sure that the Territorians have that cheap, reliable energy.
Which comes from
renewables,
we've got gas,
which is a couple of 100 kilometres away, and we've got existing infrastructure, and we need to focus on moving forward. And we've got a plan to make it better with renewables. Is definitely part of that. So if you get the balance right, which is what we're trying to do, it takes time, and we're going to focus and keep working hard to make sure the Territorians get cheap, reliable energy.
Okay, if it is so much cheaper, then you should tell the public how much you paid for that gas. If that gas is cheaper than the renewable rollout, because nobody else thinks it is. All right, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, thank you, Member for Nightcliff. Are there any further questions on output 3.4? Yep. Member for 𝙍𝙬𝙑𝘼𝙍𝙎𝙍, noting you have 3 minutes.
Quick.
Yeah.
Can we get a bit more information on that battery system, where it's located and what its potential outputs will be?
Anne, you want to answer that question?
Thanks, Minister, and thank you, Member for 𝙍𝙬𝙑𝘼𝙍𝙎. That battery is located at Channel Island Power Station. At this stage, the expectation is that that battery will be able to replace an existing Frame 6 system, which is one of their thermal generators at Channel Island. How that battery is ultimately dispatched will be a question for Entesmo, who is the system operator, and I suppose the group that actually undertakes the dispatch of competing generation systems.
And will that battery be charged up by renewables or by gas?
Thank you for the question. I would expect that that's a question for Territory Generation to respond to. I just don't know.
Thank you. One more quick line of questioning, I promise quick. With regards to the home and business battery scheme, relatively confident it sits in this output, so I apologise if it does not. Do you have a breakdown, or does the department have a breakdown of how many were taken up by individuals versus businesses?
Well, I'll just get that information for you. Just hold on.
And maybe, Member for 𝙍𝙬𝙑𝘼𝙍𝙎, I might add, how many of those were in the southern region of the Northern Territory?
And how many were in the electorate of 𝙍𝙬𝙑, if you've got that breakdown for my good friend down the end?
So we don't have that in exact detail, but what we do have households, so new ones 674, businesses 23, a total of 697, and that's from 1 December 24 to 30 May 25. But for the whole scheme, because it's been running for a while, which is, you know, the previous government scheme and ours is 4,300 in total, and 4,100 odd homes and 189 businesses. So we don't have, other than that breakdown. So sorry, Member for 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙬𝙎, we can't tell you a southern. But again, if you want that on notice, we could get that for you, I'm sure.
Member for 𝙍𝙬, please restate the question for the record. 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙬𝙬. Oh, it was a two-part question. It's a joint question.
Just a quick question is, how many of those batteries have been awarded to Central Australians?
Happy to take that question on notice.
Thank you.
Thank you. The question asked by the member for 𝙍𝙬 of the Minister has been allocated the number 3.6.
Chair,
Yes,
this
Member for
isn't a new
Johnston.
question. I don't know if I can ask it here. I just wondered if you could remind me of the page number where you talked about the total revenue from mining in the budget paper.
106, budget paper, or budget book 3.
Page 106. Yep. Thank you.
Are there any further questions on output 3.4? We might actually push through to finish this output group. The committee will now consider output 3.5, Beetaloo Project Management Office. Are there any questions? That concludes consideration of output 3.5 and output group 3. The committee will now move on to output group 4, Corporate and Shared Services. Output 4.1, Corporate and Governance. Are there any questions?
No questions.
That concludes consideration of output 4.1. I'll now call for questions relating to output 4.2, Shared Services received. Are there any questions?
No questions.
That concludes consideration of output 4.2 and output group 4. This concludes consideration of all outputs relating to mining and energy. On behalf of the committee, I'd like to thank departmental officers for attending today. Minister, if you have any concluding.
I'd just like to thank the committee and also especially to thank the department with me today, but also want to thank all the department staff, people who aren't here, because there's been a mountain of work done behind the scenes, and there's been a few sitting up here with the glory, but my guess is that there's a lot of the work that's done behind the scenes, so thank you. Thank you to all the people behind the scenes. I really appreciate your help.
Yes, and the committee definitely shares that sentiment.
Yes.
Thank
Hear,
you.
hear.
Thank you. I'm off my warning now.
And the member for 𝙍𝙬 is officially off his warning. As we return, the committee will now proceed to consider outputs relating to the Department of Corrections. We will break for 30 minutes, reconvening at 1:02 p.m.